I think there's a natural jealousy and dislike that they have had toward Robin.
There's an unspoken tension hanging in the air, a silent frustration that has been festering for years, and now it's finally boiling over. The most divisive star of Sister Wives, Robin Brown, is no longer holding back. After the tragic passing of Garrison Brown, feelings are raw. But on the latest Tell-All special, what Robin revealed about Kody Brown threw everything into chaos. And it was more than just surprising. It was the moment everyone had been waiting for. The Brown clan was thrust back into the limelight. Christine, Janelle, Mary, Robin, and Kody, all sitting down with host Sukanya Krishnan to face the truth. But when the conversation turned to love, loyalty, and lying, the perfectly crafted world surrounding Kody began to fall apart. Because this time, it wasn't just the ex-wives contradicting his version of events. It was Robin. Kody Brown did not anticipate being ambushed, but when Sukanya posed the question that left him speechless, "Did you ever really love all your wives equally?" His expression told the whole story. Kody attempted to protect himself, asserting his relationship with Robin was merely different, a different love that other people simply didn't get. But his lips betrayed him. He'd once vowed fairness, equality, but now he insisted that his love for Robin was greater than all the rest. And that's when the contradictions began accumulating. Flashbacks rolled. Kody had once told him he wanted to love all of his wives equally, but now he said that kind of love never existed. Christine looked visibly shaken. Janelle leaned forward. Even Mary, cool as always, raised an eyebrow. Then Robin spoke, and the room went silent. Speaking in a firm but gentle tone, Robin challenged Kody's revisionist history. She reminded all of us, and Kody himself, that he frequently and adoringly discussed his other 3 wives throughout their courtship. He vowed he loved them, but now he insisted he never did. "That sounds like rewriting the past," Robin complained. "That's not what you used to say." For the first time, Robin was not defending him. She was revealing him, and the tension escalated. Kody maintained he tried his best to love them all equally. He even claimed he worked hard to give Robin equal love that he did the others. But this failed. Mary, confused, asked, "Do we all have to be like Robin to be loved?" Janelle scoffed with bitterness. "Would have been nice if he told us that back then." Christine didn't hesitate. "That's a lie," she said coldly. "It was never going to work out. But things are set to blow even higher. Mark your calendars. Part 2 of the Tell-All premieres, June 1st, 2025. And if you thought things were incendiary previously, wait until you hear what really passes through the mind of Janelle regarding Kody and Robin. Christine will also face the painful title she's been assigned, Kody's favorite ex-wife, and let's just say she's had enough. But is Robin the villain? Or was she a blessing in disguise? Fans have blamed Robin for the downfall of the family for years. They accused her of manipulating Kody, alienating the other wives, and forcing her way into his heart. But there's a new school of thought forming on the internet. Some fans now think that Robin did save the other wives, just not in the manner you'd suspect. When the Browns relocated to Flagstaff, it all fell apart. Relationships imploded. Mary and Janelle parted ways. But perhaps that breakdown was essential. Perhaps, just perhaps, Robin was the wake-up call they needed to finally escape. Supporters now look to Christine, remarried and blissful. Janelle, establishing her fantasy existence in North Carolina. And Mary, still strong, still standing, espousing self-love and autonomy. Was Robin the bad guy or the surprise savior who freed them? But not everybody received that freedom. The real victims of this fallout, the children, left behind, emotionally abandoned, They saw their father invest solely in Robin's children, constructing a better family and leaving them to fend for themselves. This isn't a story about love. It's a story about betrayal, heartbreak, and the price of starting anew. And it's far from over. Because next week, more secrets are revealed, more lies are faced, and Robin, yes, Robin, may hold the secret to unlocking it all. Don't blink, don't look away, because what's coming next will make everything you thought you knew about sister wives obsolete. Sometimes, the individual your partner leaves you for is like a curse, but occasionally, they're a blessing in disguise. That's what one woman said of her Robin, the woman her ex-boyfriend left her for. And everything changed. She was pregnant during her divorce, heartbroken and lost. But now, she's thankful, every day. Because sometimes it takes losing everything to know you were only ever getting scraps. Christine Brown once stated something quietly significant in one-on-one interview. That observing Kody and Robin's relationship was the mirror she never realized she needed. It reflected to her what love could and ought be. Not manipulation, not conditional love, but something more profound, something genuine. And though Robin's entry into the Brown household was tension and debt-stricken, perhaps she was the spark that ignited the flames that ultimately consumed it all. Let's go back to when Robin Brown initially joined the family. She didn't arrive with emotional baggage alone, she came with a mountain of debt. The other three wives, Janelle, Mary, and Christine, were requested to contribute towards paying it off. They weren't simply giving love, they were covering financial ground, constructing her a home, and putting their own dreams on hold. Meanwhile, their own lives came to a halt. When the Browns left and moved to Flagstaff, things went severely awry. While Robin was awarded her home, the others were left hanging. Kody had vowed to reunite the family at Coyote Pass, but like so many of his vows, it was hollow. The property was sold eventually, and the unity was destroyed. And then there was the sit-down, the reunion, the reckoning. Following decades of public spectacle, divorce, and the tragic loss of a child, the previously tightly knit polygamous family unit was face to face on a stage now turned emotional battleground. This wasn't merely a tell-all. This was a confession, a moment of truth. And the man who once presumed spiritual dominance over this vast family, he appeared under the blinding studio lights, no longer a venerable patriarch, but a man trapped by the women who once trusted him. The inquiries arrived in waves. Did you ever love them equally? Did you ever attempt? Kody did not blink. He said he'd been attacked for loving too hard, namely, loving Robin, that his outward affection had bred jealousy, that the world punished him for being too open, that he was the victim. But what he did next altered everything. He conceded that his love for Robin outweighed all the rest, that it wasn't on the same level, that it could never have been. And in that instant, everything halted. Because this wasn't just about Robin. This was a betrayal of generations, a betrayal of vows made to Mary, Christine, and Janelle. Vows on television, in front of viewers, where he had promised equality, fairness, and togetherness. Now, he said it was never real. Then entered the silence breaker, the last wife, Robin. She had always been measured, calculated, careful with her words. But this time, something inside her cracked open. When Kody stated that he never loved the other wives, Robin defended him not. She did not provide an excuse. Instead, she named it for what it was, a lie. Gently but firmly, she said what everyone had not expected. It was in Kody's early days with the three of them that he often professed great love for his three initial wives. Robin had heard it herself, and those words, the ones he now claimed never existed, were the very ones she accepted to come and join the family in the beginning. It was not only an insult to Mary, Janelle, and Christine, it was a deception of her as well. And the silence in the studio was oppressive. This wasn't the villain fans had pegged. For a moment, raw and brief, Robin danced into the light, not as the home wrecker, but as another woman caught off guard by a man retelling history to serve his ego. And then, in succession, the others testified. Mary, the most emotionally guarded of the three, finally confronted everything. Was I ever really loved? Janelle, who had given up stability and lived through years of coming in second best, laid bare how deep the hurts ran. Christine, the courageous voice of reality, called his recent statements what they were: gaslighting on a national platform. This wasn't the downfall of a family, it was the unveiling of a man. A moral leader who lost sight of his values for selfish ease. A father who built a new life with one wife and allowed his other children to fade into obscurity. And now, the women he underestimated are thriving. Christine has embarked on new love. Janelle is constructing a life of her own. Mary is emerging as a model of self-respect and personal strength. And Robin has finally spoken, not in defense, but in truth. Because sometimes when you get a Robin in life, it's not about who they are, it's about what they reveal. And once you've seen the truth, you can never unsee it. She smiled, but it was a bitter smile. One of the first wives, looking back at the years spent running after love, softly asked, "Did we all have to become Robin to be loved at all?" It wasn't a question, it was a revelation. Another wife, practical, fiercely independent, laughed out loud, the sound tinged with years of contained pain. "If he had just told us the truth," she said, "we could have made very different choices. Long ago." And the final voice? She didn't temper her points. She no longer had to. Her tone was matter of fact, not out of anger, but after so many years of being ignored, undermined, and disappeared. No amount of revisionist storytelling can erase what we lived. What started as an experiment in polygamy turned spiritual quickly ended as a lesson in emotional rank. Only one man ever knew for sure what the perfect wife was. And the others, they were supposed to conform, accommodate, and accept the remnants of love. After years of promising equality, he now acknowledged what many had guessed for a long time. He had always loved one woman more. Perhaps he hadn't known it, or perhaps he just didn't want to say so, until now. But without truth, there is no love. And now, before him stood not silent partners or submissive souls, but women who had long transcended the fantasy. They weren't going to give their lives up any longer for a man's dream that never considered them as equals. As the reunion came to a close, the spotlight turned, not back toward the past, but toward the unknown future. Robin, who had been the golden wife, the pet, the stormbringer, at last dropped her defenses. She talked openly of the tension, the shame, the incessant backlash she'd borne alone, rather than protecting her. The love between her and Kody had made her the focus. She now stood not only at his side, but between him and the ruins. Where did she belong in this shattered home? One wife spoke of lingering anger, not only towards her former husband, but towards the woman whom she had once considered a sister. Another shook her head at being labeled the favorite ex. "No woman," she said, her voice trembling, "should be validated by comparison." This was not a one-time episode. It was an autopsy. The Brown family wasn't devastated by outsiders or scandal. It was destroyed by favoritism, deception, and a failure to adapt. And yet, in the fall, something odd was found. The woman who once symbolized disruption is now regarded in a different light by many viewers and commentators. Yes, Robin was polarizing. Yes, she transformed the family. But perhaps that's the idea. Her arrival pulled back the curtain. It showed the cracks. She was the tipping point that pushed the other women to stop surviving and start living. In the early moments of the tell-all special, Robin stayed measured. She was reserved when questioned about the recent divorce of Kody and the first wife, Mary. She refused to comment publicly on private spiritual conversations, an act some perceived as respectful, others as avoidance. But it fueled speculation, because sometimes silence screams the loudest. And on social media, a new explanation began to develop. What if Robin wasn't simply a wedge, but a wake-up call? What if her existence, her relationship with Kody, was the mirror that compelled the rest to notice the imbalance they had made normal for far too long? As one fan succinctly explained, Robin wasn't the villain, she was the proof they needed to leave. This is no longer a tale of polygamy. This is a tale of truth, of women who were told to settle for less, choosing instead to insist on more. And in that choice, they discovered not merely escape, but empowerment. She smiled, but a bitter smile. One of the earliest wives, reflecting back on the years spent chasing love, whispered softly, "Did we all have to become Robin in order to be loved at all?" It was not a question. It was a discovery. Another wife, practical, fiercely independent, laughed out loud, the sound laced with years of repressed pain. "If he had just told us the truth," she said, "we could have made very different choices, long ago." And the last voice? She did not soften her arguments. She no longer needed to. Her language was factual, not out of rage, but after all those years of having been dismissed, downplayed, and erased. No amount of revisionist storytelling can erase what we lived. It began as an experiment in polygamy that soon ceased as a tutoring in emotional hierarchy. Only one man ever truly knew what the perfect wife was, and the others? They were to conform, accommodate, and accept the leftovers of love. For years he had promised equality, and now he recognized what many had suspected for so long. He'd always loved one woman more. Maybe he hadn't realized it, or maybe he just didn't want to admit it. Until now. But without truth, there is no love. And now, before him stood not silent partners or submissive souls, but women who long ago had outgrown the fantasy. They were not going to give up their lives anymore for a man's dream that never held them as equals. As the reunion drew to an end, the light shone, not back towards the past, but into the future unknown. Robin, who had been the golden wife, the pet, the stormbringer, finally lowered her defenses. She spoke freely of the tension, the shame, the constant backlash she'd carried alone. Instead of defending her, the love between her and Kody had made her the target. She now stood not just at his side, but between him and the wreckage. Where did she fit in this broken-down house? One wife mentioned residual anger, not only to her ex-husband, but to the woman to whom she'd once referred as sister. Another shook her head at being the favorite ex. "No woman," she said, her words shaking, "should be legitimized by comparison." It was not an isolated incident. It was an autopsy. The Brown family was not ruined by outsiders and scandal. It was destroyed by favoritism, dishonesty, and a failure to evolve. And yet, in the fall, something strange was discovered. The woman who once represented upheaval is now viewed differently by many watchers and critics. Yes, Robin was polarizing. Yes, she revolutionized the family. But maybe that's the point. Her presence pulled back the curtain. It revealed the cracks. She was the tipping point who encouraged the other women to cease surviving and begin living. Early on in the tell-all special, Robin remained reserved. She was diplomatic when asked about Kody's recent divorce from the first wife, Mary. She declined to speak publicly about intimate spiritual discussions, an action others saw as courteous, others as evasion, but it fueled rumors, because sometimes silence screams the loudest. And online, there came a new explanation. What if Robin wasn't merely a wedge, but a wake-up call? What if her being, her relationship with Kody, was the reflection that forced the others to see the imbalance they had made normal for too long? As one reader so well described, Robin wasn't the villain, she was the proof they needed to leave. This is no longer a story about polygamy. This is a story about truth, of women who were told to accept less, opting instead to demand more. And in that decision, they found not just escape, but empowerment. Now, each of these women follows her own way, one creating a serene home, distant from the shadows of what has passed, another building a new life, rooted in healthy love and respect for one another, and the third emerging as a voice of emotional health, turning her struggles into wisdom for others who must walk through similar suffering. From mourning to growth, silence to self-worth, these women have taken back their narratives. Thank you for watching.